Hi everyone, this video will cover introductory paragraphs for academic essays. We'll outline the grading requirements for the intro paragraphs of the essays you turn in this class and talk about essay introductory paragraph structure for all your classes. We're going to be going through this PowerPoint lecture available right here. But before we begin, I wanted to show you a sample intro paragraph. This is the sample essay I've been trudging out showing everybody because one, it's properly formatted, but two, it looks like a research essay, right? And so this is an intro paragraph. You can see that the paragraph itself is very long and it has two parts. It has an intro hook and a thesis So you can check that out later. Notice that your intro paragraph is indented 5 spaces. And that it is in a standard font, which is Times New Roman 12, with 1-inch margins on all. Let's take a look at introductory paragraphs. All right. So you already know this, but I'll tell you anyway. An essay has 3 types of paragraphs. It has introductory paragraphs, body paragraphs, and concluding paragraphs. All 3 have different structures. For this class, your introductory paragraph needs to be 6 sentences long at a minimum. So that reflects the length of academic essays and their paragraphs. It's getting you in the habit of writing long arguments. And so we've got to start somewhere. So that's the requirement we use in this class. So those 6 sentences are made up of 2 parts. And I say here, an introduction generally contains 2 parts in any order. 1, a hook, which is also known as an introductory strategy, and 2, a thesis. Now we've already covered thesis. That was given in a lecture earlier in this module. If you missed it, you'll want to go check it out now because you can't write your hook without your thesis because they must be related. All right? All right. So here's the too long don't read method. If you already know about intro paragraphs, just know the following before you move on from this lecture. If you already have a method that works for you, use that. Just make sure it contains the following parts. To earn full credit, your introductory paragraph must be between 6 and 12 sentences long, contain a developed unified hook, and this may be a hook and a broad statement or summary, must be related to your thesis, and it must contain a thesis. So if you're an experienced essay writer, use these requirements to the work you already do, and you'll be fine. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the hook. The function of a hook is to get your reader interested in your essay. That's its function. And the hook is related to your thesis. It contains the same basic ideas of your thesis as your thesis. So if you're not sure what that means, if we go back to our Canvas page on intro paragraphs and we scroll down, I've got a couple of videos that sort of talk about this issue in depth. And this video in particular is interesting because it talks about how movies hook an audience. And you can use some of the same techniques in your essay if you like. So what do you write for all these sentences, for these 6 sentences? I'm going to give you a list of possible intro strategies you can use in your hook. And I'm going to advise you to please choose one from the list for your essay. Do not use more than one. Often if you choose more than one from the list, you end up writing an incomplete idea or an underdeveloped introduction. It's because your essay sort of jumps around to too many ideas right at the beginning. So if you've ever gotten something like awkward transition, underdeveloped introduction, that might be the cause. All right, here are some possible strategies. 1, you can open with a brief, vivid description. So whatever your thesis is on, for example, in our essay, it's on problems in our neighborhood, you might do a brief, vivid description of what that problem looks like. If you were to see it on the sidewalk, what would it look like? What would you see? What is that problem? You might try opening with an anecdote or personal story. Now, this is something that has happened to you, and you're relating that to the thesis. In the past, you may have been advised that you shouldn't use the pronoun I in an essay. If your teacher has told you that, you'll want to follow that advice in those classes. In our class, however, it's quite all right to use I. The writer is an I. We can assert that. That is fine. But if that makes you uncomfortable, try a background story. This is where you relate something that happened to someone involved to the thesis. So this might be a neighbor, a family member, a friend, or even something you read in your research. If you do get a background story from research, be sure to put quotes around any words you borrow, and be sure to cite your source even if you paraphrase. More possible strategies: you can open with examples. You can open with a definition, but be sure to put quotes around any words you borrow. Be sure to cite your source. And then, because it has to be 6 sentences, 5 sentences long, be sure to explain why that definition is important to your thesis. Another option is opening with a surprising fact or statistic, but again, put quotes around any words you borrow, be sure to cite your source, and be sure to explain why that fact or statistic is important. More options: try making a historical comparison. Again, if you're using information from an outside source, you want to put quotes around any words you borrow. You want to cite your source or sources, and you need to explain why that event is important or related to your thesis. Another option: use a vivid quotation. Be sure to introduce that quotation. That means put your own words in front of the quotation marks. You shouldn't start any sentence in a Modern Language Association or MLA formatted essay with a quote. All your quotes need to be integrated. Also, be sure to cite your source. Be sure to explain why that quote is important, and that's using a vivid quote. Finally, your final option is to open with a refutation. That summarizes the other side and tells why that side is wrong. So those are your options for opening hooks. In the past, you may have been taught to open with a question. That type of strategy is not going to work for us. It creates too much uncertainty in the reader. It doesn't allow you to develop your ideas enough, and it's a little frustrating to read if you're just going to answer it anyway. So if you like the question strategy, try using it in a rough draft and then answer the question and use your answer as your intro hook, okay? So your introductory paragraph, just to restate, needs 6 sentences minimum. It needs a hook that's 5 sentences minimum, and a thesis that's 1 to 2 sentences, topic, argument, and explanation, all sort of shoved into 2 sentences. And that will give you your 6-sentence minimum. Please know that you will be graded on that. I will count the sentences in your intro paragraph. So if you're someone who has written a very, very artful intro paragraph, it's exactly 4 sentences long and it is perfect as is, may I advise you, please save a draft of that awesome, artful, creative essay in another file, write 2 more sentences, and turn that copy into me. Okay, we've got to follow the requirements for this essay so everybody is graded fairly. So everybody's got to do the minimum. All right, and that's it for intro paragraph. You might want to check out what's at the bottom of that Canvas page. There's more information there. Just sort of sums up what we talked about here, type of hooks, so on and so forth. And you'll also see some worksheets, and this might help you with your intro paragraph construction. These are just literally worksheets. You could print them out and just fill in the lines with what you're supposed to do. You can see up here it says write a hook and use one of these choices, and a lot of these were just in the lecture you saw. All right, everybody, let me know if you have questions, and enjoy your intro paragraph.